Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we are here to talk with Carolyn Thomas, and she's going to be presenting on supporting student success with accommodations and modifications. I'll give you a little bit of a background about Carolyn, and then I will turn it over to her. Carolyn is a project manager for OSDE with 37 years of experience in education and 5 years at the OSDE. She oversees personnel initiatives, including certification, boot camps, severe profound, micro-credential, long-term substitutes, para-pros, and CPI training. She is known for leading Oklahoma's regional para-pro and support conferences. Carolyn is recognized for delivering accessible, clear, and well-organized presentations and brings experience as a parapro, a special ed teacher, coordinator, administrator, and director. If you guys have any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat, so you can go ahead and drop those in the chat. And Carolyn, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm ready. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back. Thank you to Alexa's team. I'm glad to be able to serve you. Let's get started with where we're going to be in supporting student success with accommodations and modifications. Can you see my screen? I think you can. I see the red square around it. Thank you, Yasmin. So understanding and implementing effective accommodations in instruction and assessment. We're going to cover several bases and avenues today. So first, I want to tell you that I am a church administrator, and so we are orchestrating a baptism for a young woman who has rigor mortis. She's extremely stiff from cerebral palsy. So in order to get her baptized, it's going to take a team of us. We have an OT, a PT, a church administrator, and we have some accommodation tools that we're going to have to use. The first barrier that we have is she able to make a 12-inch step? There are about 10 steps leading up to the baptism pool, and she has to be able to make that 12-inch drop. So I'm going to tell you all of that is going to fit in to where we're going. Okay, so here we go. Let's begin. We're going to talk about today and make sure you understand the purpose of accommodations and modifications, how to align those with curriculum and testing. It's important for the students to understand what their accommodations are and for them to use self-advocacy for themselves. I'm going to talk about the differences in accommodations and modifications, go through some instructional strategies, and then give you some wonderful resources that you can use along your way. So first, let's understand what we're talking about and know the purpose of it. So an accommodation is going to change how the student will access their learning and how the student will demonstrate knowledge. A modification is going to change everything. It's going to change what they learn and what they are expected to master. So we have the how we're going to do it, and then the what. The accommodation is how, the modification is what. So here are the differences. Accommodations will allow a student to complete the same assignment and the same assessments as their peers, still in the general education classroom. A modification is going to reduce or change the assignment or the assessment and going to change it in a fundamental way. The modification is going to change the learning target, all right? It's going to be a significant change, but it's going to be important that you know we don't want to change the standard. We're going to may change what they learn or how they learn, but the standard will remain the same. So an accommodation, here we go, should not alter the curriculum standards or the expectations. We don't want to remove the barriers to learning, and we don't want to reduce the expectations we have for the students. We want to provide equal access to the curriculum, all right? The accommodation should level the playing field for students with disabilities and show what they know without interference from their disabilities. So now, accommodations, we're talking about four different ranges. Ranges is not a good word. I'm going to say areas that we're going to address the accommodation. We have presentation accommodations, how they respond, setting accommodations, and then the timing and scheduling accommodations. If you're familiar with EdPlan, all of these areas are on the page where we select accommodations. It's important to know that with presentation accommodations, that's how is information delivered to the students. Do they use text to speech? Do they need large print? Do they need visual aids? Do we need to simplify the directions for them? Now, please understand that text to speech is different than speech to text, okay? So the response accommodations examples are verbal responses. We're going to give a verbal response, or we may have them point to the correct answer. They may need assistive technology. They may need someone to write it for them, a scribe. And they also may need the speech to text. That's what we do when we're using Hey Siri and Google, or when we're using the microphone and we're using speak to text to text. Also, calculators are under the response accommodations. The setting, where will the learning occur? Students may need a quiet place. They may need small group. They may need preferential seating. Those are setting accommodations. And the last one was the timing and scheduling. When and how long does the instruction occur? If you're going to give the accommodation for extended time, be careful, because that could make you frustrated at the end of the day. You could give time and a half. Homework is due tomorrow during math hour, but if the student has time and a half, maybe they could have it by the end of the school day tomorrow. Or if they had double time, they could have it due day after tomorrow. But either way, you're going to have to be consistent with that. If you're doing it time and a half or double time, make sure that you're consistent with modifications and accommodations. But also, sometimes students may need a frequent break. If you have a student that has problems with enuresis and encopresis, maybe they need to take a restroom break every hour. Maybe the student that's very hyper may need to walk around the classroom for every 20 minutes. Just a couple of laps around the room, return to your seat. Don't touch anybody while you're walking, just walk. Sometimes you may need to have the accommodation for breaking down multiple sessions. You could take one 60-minute testing session and break it up into 4 15-minute sessions. The student can't do 60 minutes at one time. Chunk it and break it up into 15 minutes or 30 minutes, however is necessary for the student to meet success. It's important that we look at accommodations and make them meaningful. Don't write an IEP and put accommodations on it just because mom said she wants this accommodation, or we're going to leave it on here just in case they need it later. Be careful with those things. The accommodations have to be meaningful. So the IEP team should look and base their decisions on the individual student's needs, not what a medical doctor says, not what their eligibility category is, especially not on a parent's request. Does the student individually need this? And also, please, while I'm thinking of this, don't make blanket accommodations. Everybody in my classroom gets this accommodation. Individual needs for students. Look at the barriers that the student will face and address those barriers. And then also match the accommodation to the skill that's being taught or that the student needs to master. Make sure the accommodation does not provide an unfair advantage and is not going to change the construction of the curriculum. We need to make sure the accommodations that we're using are effective and that it's feasible for that setting. Remember, no, no, no to just because accommodations or just in case. But make sure you use the paraprofessional in your classroom. When you're looking at selecting meaningful accommodations, a paraprofessional can help in many, many ways. They can do classroom observations. They can give assessment results. They can look at student preferences. Paraprofessionals can do all of that. They can assist with that. They're not certified teachers, but they can assist with that. So if you have a paraprofessional or a personal care assistant in your classroom, you can look in the Policy and Procedures Handbook and look on Chapter 15. It's about, I believe, about Section 4, and it will outline for you duties, things that a para and a CPA can do. I'm sorry, PCA, what they can do and things they cannot do. So now we're going to talk about 5 questions. That's going to be our decision-making framework of asking these questions and making the determination, does the student need this accommodation? So the next 2 slides, let's talk about these 5 questions. The first question, we're going to address the standard. Remember, we don't want to change the standard. What is the student expected to do, expected to know, expected to learn? Look at the standard. Now that we know the standard, we're going to identify the barrier. What barrier prevents the student from accessing this content or demonstrating knowledge in this area? What's the problematic area? What is the barrier? And the third question is, now we're going to look at what accommodations will remove that barrier. This is our solution. Now that we know what the standard is, we can identify the barrier. We know the solution because we're going to individually place accommodations into the curriculum for the student to have success and to master. Now we have our solution. But after the solution, we have to make sure, do they know how to do that? Do they know how to use that accommodation? Do they know why they have that accommodation? Is this a big secret that they have the accommodation? We need to teach them effectively how to use it, why you have this, what you're going to use this for. That's training and implementation. And then we have to document and collect the evidence. That's our data and outcome. It's a very simple process. And when you think about it, those 5 questions, that's going to bloom into selecting individually appropriate accommodations for each student, not just making a blanket, everybody gets this, or putting no thought into it, or just because mama said they want that accommodation. All right. But you also, after you have everything in place, if it's working, we need to circle back and look at it often. If this accommodation is not working, then we may need to revisit that. If it is working too well, now we need to start pulling it away so the student won't have to have that accommodation. So revise and revisit accommodations on a regular basis, and let's make sure that it's based on the student's progress. Now let's talk about how we're going to align those accommodations to curriculum and to testing. Well, first, the accommodation, remember, it must not alter the construction of the standard. So here's the deal. Oftentimes, I get parents who will call and they will say, she has a read aloud accommodation and they're not doing it. Okay. On math, read aloud is appropriate. In science, read aloud is appropriate. Reading a math test, read aloud is appropriate. But you can't use the read aloud accommodation on a reading comprehension test. That's going to shift the meaning to listening comprehension. It's not the student reading to understand, the student is listening to understand. So reading support is appropriate for a math problem, but not for reading comprehension. I hope that makes sense. They must access the same content. Excuse me. They must access the same content, depth, and complexity as their typical peers. The standard needs to remain unchanged. We're going to document the accommodations often. We're going to be consistent with the accommodations, and we're going to align the accommodations to grade level expectations. Important that we remember and keep those things in mind. When we are aligning accommodations to testing, what we do in the classroom on a daily basis should mirror what the testing accommodation is used. Please, please, please do not wait till testing season. Go in and add this accommodation so the student can have success on the test. And the student has not been using that accommodation all year. Make sure the student understands what the accommodation is, why they have it, and how it should be used. Make sure the parents understand. There is a difference in read aloud for math and read aloud for reading comprehension. All right? Students have to use the accommodations during instruction before testing all year long. Let's review the state and your district policies for what accommodations are allowable, and then we're going to document the effectiveness of this before we start it, okay? Don't wait till the day of the test and shove a calculator into a student's hand, a scientific calculator that they have no idea how to use. Make sure you train them in how the accommodations should be used so you will see proper success. Consider if the accommodation will affect the validity of the assessment result, and it may not be permitted on some standardized tests. All accommodations for our state assessments are not allowable accommodations. So make sure you review what those standards and expectations, things that are accepted. So plan the accommodation well before the testing day begins. Try it out. Do a dry walkthrough. See how the student works with it. Coordinate all of this with the testing coordinators. Now, back to the baptism. We're having a walkthrough. I think I said that earlier, to see if she's going to be able to make that 12-inch step. If she can't make that 12-inch step to climb into the baptism, we're going to have to consider a modification. The accommodation is we have a team of people. We have walkers with brakes. We have gate belts. We have shower chairs, all of those things for if we make it to the water, accommodations. But if we can't make it to the water, we're going to have to modify it and make it look the same. The standard won't be different, but as long as we can get to the water, that's what we're trying to get, okay? I hope that makes sense to you. So why explicit instruction matters. Students may not automatically know how to use the accommodations. Teaching them the proper effectiveness will build their confidence and also build their independence. So the teaching steps for the students and their accommodations. Explain what it is. Describe why it helps and how it addresses their need. You can model it, show them how to do it. You may have to do hand over hand. You may have to do hand under hand, all right? Modifications and accommodations. Provide guided practice. You know how it is. Whole group instruction, small group instruction, one-on-one instruction. That's how we're going to teach it. Allow independent practice and reflect and review the effectiveness that the student. I'm not quite sure she understands how to do this. We may need a little bit more training. Okay. So now we need to prepare the students for the testing. Practice using it in test-like conditions before the actual test. Let them understand what a 15-minute period feels like so that they're not asking every 30 seconds, is it time now? Are we done yet? Let them get a feel of 15 minutes. Maybe set a timer on their desk. Let them see it on a clock, the countdown. Let them see it on an analog clock, what the quarter hour looks like. Let them sit and wait until the alarm on your phone goes off. All of those things. Get them familiar with the testing technology. Oops, there's a typo, and materials. Build confidence, help them build their confidence through successful accommodations, and make sure they understand and know how to use it. I think I've just about beat that horse to death. Let's move on. Let's prepare students for testing accommodations. Mock testings, same thing. Address their concerns and their questions. Coordinate with testing staff. Let's go into student advocacy. Have conversations about individual learning needs and strengths. Help students articulate why their accommodations help them learn. Create a positive classroom culture around diverse learning needs, and practice using accommodations in low-stakes situations first. Encourage them to ask their questions. Encourage them to say, I like this, or even more so, I don't like using this. You could also ask them, what do you prefer? Do you have a way that would help you make this successful? Let them speak up for themselves and consider what they're saying. Take it to the team, make them a part of the IEP team, and have them speak up for themselves. Teach them their self advocacy. Teach them how and when to request accommodations appropriately. Well, I want to start this week on this. No, baby, we have to wait until we get to an IEP meeting, and then you can tell the team when you're wanting to start this accommodation. Empower them in their communication to tell the other teachers, hey, I get this accommodation with whatever. All right. Let them show them their empowerment. Encourage their input and of the selection and review of their accommodations. And make sure that accommodation becomes a normal part of their learning activity. So let's look at some examples of accommodations. Excuse me, now's a good time to get a drink of water instead of coffee. Some examples of accommodations. I want you to see the able, not the label. Now remember, an accommodation is how they're going to access learning, and a modification is what they're going to learn, okay? Just a quick preview. An accommodation, an example of it, is an outline guide for note-taking. It's a graphic organizer for writing. It's completing a math assignment in chunks when all of the problems are assigned. It is taking their notebook, their math paper, and teach them to do a hamburger fold. Do this half first, or a hot dog fold. Do this side of the page first. It's taking a highlighter and highlighting all the evens or all the odds. It's taking a highlighter and highlighting one question, one math problem that shows a different concept. Okay, not only all the addition or all the subtraction, but mixing it up a little bit. We want the curriculum to still be rigorous. We want them to still have a challenge in their thinking. Okay, so that's an accommodation. The modification is we reduce the notes with only some concepts being provided to the student. We took the graphic organizer and it's turned in as the writing assignment. It's not the it's completely different. It's changed. The standard is the same. the graphic organizer for an accommodation is now going to be the tool that's going to help with the writing process. With the modification, the graphic organizer is the writing assignment, as long as you get the standard taught. Or maybe only half of the math problems are assigned and they are lower level problems. This is what it could look like. The outline guide for taking notes, and then this becomes your writing template, or this graphic organizer could also become the assignment. Where'd that cursor go? There you are. So accommodations or modifications for textbooks or curriculum. Gonna have a little quiz here, an open book quiz, because the answers are there. So if we're offering the same information but written at a lower level, a lower reading level, that's a modification. If we're using digital versions of textbooks or curriculum to assist with reading difficulty, offer lower reading level audio versions of the textbook or curriculum, that is a modification. An accommodation is large print or braille. A modification is if we're reading it aloud to the student. Highlighting key concepts is an accommodation. Study guides to assist with key vocabulary and concepts printed in bold is an accommodation. If we're looking, the Library for the Blind and Oklahoma Able Tech, those are the websites there for you. You will be able to get, you'll be able to find that. But these are examples of instructional technology needs for diverse students and their different way of learning. So assistive technology, large print, braille, and assistive technology. Here we go again. Shorten the assignment. Is that a modification or an accommodation? Oh, I forgot. The answers are right there. A modification. Create posters, models, videos instead of written assignments. It's an accommodation, and it's also could be a modification. Orally taking tests or quizzes, an accommodation. Dictate answers using speech to text. We all do it when texting. Accommodation. A live scribe, an accommodation. A graphic organizer instead of a writing an essay, a modification. And other examples: extra time to complete the assignment, accommodation. Demonstrating knowledge by pointing to the object or picture, and accommodation. Complete the assignment with a peer study buddy, accommodation. Hey Google, hey Siri, accommodation. Online calendars. We would be lost without those, wouldn't we? Online calendars with reminders popping up, accommodations. A few more: preferential seating, accommodation. Reducing visual and sound distractions, headphones, accommodations. Study centers, putting up the scientific poster boards around, making a study carrel, that's an accommodation. Or an adapted chair, sitting on a beach ball, reading in a beanbag. All of those things can be accommodations. And one more, okay? One more, last one on this. Leaving class early to avoid an overcrowded hallway or overstimulation in the hallway, that's an accommodation. Adult support in the cafeteria, that's an accommodation. And frequent breaks during extended assignments, that is an accommodation. Now, this is what it looks like. Study carrels, pointers, a raised desk, flexible seating, all of those. I keep losing this cursor. There it is. Instructional strategies. Albert Einstein said, "I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn." Let's talk about instructional strategies. Scaffolding. Using visual and graphic organizers, modeling strategies, or offering verbal prompts. A word web is a graphic organizer. And starting with the um, excuse me, I'm sorry, scaffolding. I'm sorry, that's what I was trying to get out in that. It refers to the temporary support and guidance that's going to be provided to students as they develop those skills and those concepts. But when they get it, you have to back down. You're simply going to break it into smaller, manageable steps, but you're going to eventually reduce the support. All right. Don't enable, make them able. Here is another one in using a scaffolding strategy, graphic organizers, connecting to background knowledge, sentence structure, small group and partner work, all of those things. Whoops, sorry about that. If you hear some background noise, I'm sorry. Someone just walked through my back door. There is also the KWL, know what you want to know and what you learned. So this could be with brainstorming and listing everything you need to know about a topic in the know column, like the water cycle. You might list what is in the water cycle. There's rain, there's clouds, sun, and oceans. What do you want to know before? You could write down questions with the W column about what they want to know is how do clouds form? Where does rain come from? What does the water cycle have in different stages? And then what I learned under the L column. I learned that water evaporates. Water condenses into clouds and it precipitates as rain or snow, and also ice and sleet, as we have experienced. There are alpha boxes. These are simple, versatile tools for improving comprehension, improving vocabulary, and also story recall. What the students do in the alpha boxes are they will list the alphabet in a column and brainstorm words, phrases, things that are specific to that topic that start with that letter. This you can use these you can use these alpha boxes individually. You can use it when you're pairing them with other peers, or you can use it in small groups. There's the Frayer model. I use this model a lot in staying organized with things. So the Frayer model is a graphic organizer, and it's going to help clarify, for a teaching sense, it's going to help clarify the, I'm sorry, let me back up. The meaning of the vocabulary word while listening, while you're reading, while viewing text. It's used before reading to activate the background knowledge. So during reading, getting dyslexia of the tongue, I can hardly read now. Are we still on?
Yeah, you're good. I can
Okay,
hear you.
I'm so sorry. Something happened with my internet. I saw something happened with my internet. It's not uncommon where I live.
I can totally
Um,
understand.
so again, with the Frayer model, again, I use it a lot for staying organized, but you're gonna put in your background knowledge. Okay. It can be used for reading and also for math vocabulary. And the way I use it to stay organized, I have what needs to be done frequently, what's urgent, what's important, and what can wait. That's the way I use the Frayer model to stay organized. There are also the chain of events. So the chain of events is just what it says. It's going to be the frequency of actions or the incidents. One event that is a segue into another one. It can be used to describe the sequence of chain reactions. What happened in the story first? What happened second? All right. There's nothing cuter than a child coming around and telling all the things that they've learned, and they start getting their details mixed up. Well, what happened first? What happened after that? And then after she said that, what happened? You may have to give them little prompts to keep them along, but that's the chain of events. And there is the knowledge rating scale. It is used to gauge the student's individual understanding of a particular topic or concept before, during, or after they've learned it. It simply just addresses their knowledge track. Okay, it helps them identify what they know and helps the teachers. This is a great to document their areas of strength and their areas of weakness in a knowledge rating scale. Visualization techniques. These we see these all around hospitals all the time. What is your pain scale? What is your what? How do you rate your pain? And so they will have a very sad face all the way up to a smiley face, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. What is your pain? So visualization, it can be done in charts and diagrams and images and videos, and it will assist in making connections and keeping information in a meaningful way. So how do you feel right now when your student walks up and they're very angry? What mood are you in? Well, I'm mad, or I'm tired, or I'm happy or unhappy. I sat in a workshop with I can't think of her name right now. But anyway, she really encouraged not using sad faces on stickers. And she said because children get enough sad news already, they get enough disappointments in life. So she said maybe just a straight face instead of an upside down smile. Avoid visual overload. That classroom in that picture would have me bouncing off the wall. Less is more. So, cognitive overload. Make sure that you have clear and focused visuals. Gradually introduce things. Have purposeful review and remove some things. The student that is hyperactive would be looking every second at everything in the classroom. I'm not saying don't have any learning charts. I'm not saying don't have things on your walls, but I am saying that sometimes less is more when you have students with sensory disabilities. Avoid visual overload. And also, we could use mnemonic strategies, okay? Mnemonic strategies. My very excellent mother just served us nachos. That sentence put all of the planets in order as they are related. What's next to the sun? Use acronyms, visualizations, rhymes, and songs. I remember when I learned to divide and multiply fractions, it was mine is not to wonder why, just invert and multiply. I remember it always when we're dividing fractions. Chunking, a keyword method, acrostics, and the Loki method. Here are your resources. These are some printable instructional strategies. There is also the National Association of Special Education Teachers. I think you're going to get a copy of these slides, so you'll be able to have those links. And also, Alexa's team has this wonderful MTSS academic library. Make sure you get into it under MTSS. And also, they have a behavior library, so that's also a good one too. And last, if you have questions or comments, these are the people on your team who will help you. There's Rachel Beckner, Wendy Hardwick, Yasmin Brown, and Alexa Hudak. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Carolyn. We have a few questions here in the chat. Is this a good time to take some questions?
Yes.
So the first question that we had, one of the participants asked was, the difference between accommodations and modifications seems clear, but as a fifth grade math teacher, how are the kids on IEPs to learn fifth grade math standards? And then they go on to say they have 35 kids in the room when they're pulling 4 students at a time, hoping to reteach them value, teach them place value because they did not understand the concept. The other 31 kids cannot sit quiet long enough for them to do anything. So there should be more math interventionists who can help with the kids. So any suggestions or recommendations for this team?
Yes, I'm going to say that you're going to take where you are and then take it one step behind. You may have to go back to the foundation of it and teach those steps leading up to it. So if they don't, and you know what? I'm sorry that you have a large class and it's overwhelming. But when you look at what the students, the 4 that are not getting it, they may need a little more one-on-one. You could ask if they could go to a resource room. You could ask if you could have para assistants with them coming into a pull out or a push in. But you're going to have to start with the concept and look at the barrier that came before that. And when you look at what was before that, then you're going to return to teaching that concept and then move on to the next one. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. It's going to be a lot of practice and reteach. They may not make 80% mastery. The IEP team may need to consider 75% mastery for that standard. That's my answer, and I hope you understand. I hope it satisfies your question.
Yeah, these are great questions. So we have a couple of questions that are around modifying. So it says, how do you modify 7th, 8th grade, and 9th grade standards for an entire class that reads at a pre-K and kindergarten level? So they've asked that we email them, but I have another question from a self-contained teacher who's wanting to know kind of the same thing. So maybe we could go over some recommendations on how to modify given those students at that level.
Yeah, I I did some substitute teaching, and I don't need to say that, in a high school in a large city, um, in an elementary school in 4th grade. It was hard to get past getting classroom control. By the time you got all the behaviors under control, then you didn't have as much time to teach. And the barrier that I had was, yes, they were 4th grade, but they couldn't do single digit addition. So what I had to do was I had to go all the way back, and did the whole group, everybody, we're going to do number 1. You do not move on to number 2, even if they understood the concept. Everybody had to listen to the instruction for number 1. Then we moved as a class on to number 2. Correct behaviors, get them all corralled in. Now, everybody, we're going to do number 2 together. And you may have to do that if you have a lot of low readers in your classroom. Read aloud is going to be an appropriate accommodation for math. When you get into where you're having the stated problems, the word problems, you'll definitely have to read those questions to them and just work through it. One math problem at a time. But you're going to have to go back and tackle the barriers that came before why they can't do this, because that learning gap is broad, it's wide. So you're going to have to go back and figure out why they can't so that you can see where to start next. My heart goes out to you. I hope you make it. You're going to.
Those are great questions and great answers. I'm sorry, Carolyn, I didn't mean to cut you off. And then we had one other person say that they use a 1 to 5 chart to see how the child is feeling, and they find that to be very effective. Are there any other questions at this time? Oh, wait, there's some more here at the end. Just a second. So this is the teacher that was asking questions about the group of 35 students. They're saying they cannot do anything every time I do the class-wide instruction and reteaching. I'm behind with the pacing guide and the admins are breathing down my neck. You see the vicious cycle. So any thoughts or ideas for support in that area?
Mhm. Ask for professional development. Ask for someone to work alongside you. See if there is a high school junior or senior who needs a work study program. Um, Reach out and ask for the extra set of hands that you need. Ask your principal to come in and give a "we're going to be good" pep talk today, to browse through every hour or so. You have to ask for help. You have to advocate for yourself. Tell administration what you need and why you need it. Hmm.
And then there's another question that says, I inherited an IEP. The student has accommodations for all classes for extended time on assignments. When given time in general elective classes to complete the work, the student will regularly watch YouTube videos and not do the assignment, citing his accommodations as the reason to do it later.
Hmm. Then the team needs to meet. That needs to be discussed. And if that document. This date, this time, this is where they were. Document. Pull the team back together and look at the evidence of what's happening. And the team may need to decide to take that accommodation away if the student is not using it effectively. Documentation is going to be your key factor there. If it's not documented, it's not happening.
Okay. So then we have some additional questions. Are you seeing the chat, Carolyn?
I'm seeing it pop up every now and then.
Oh, okay. Um, so let me double check here. So Rebecca, I can send you an email and we can chat a little bit more about your specific situation. Um, and then this one says, the gen ed teacher is currently refusing to allow students to turn it in late. Don't blame them, but yeah, absolutely concerned about a current 0 grade. Okay, no problem, Kelly. Okay, so are there any other questions that I did not address? I'm the Jenna. If you want, you can send me an email and I can give you some more specific guidance to your situation. And my email is actually rachel.becker@sde.ok.gov. So if you guys have specific questions about your situation and would like some additional guidance or support, please feel free to email me. All righty. Well, I think we're good for today. I don't see any additional questions coming in. Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone else for joining despite all of this crazy winter weather. I know it looks like a lot of the schools are out again tomorrow, but we'll be curious to see how that goes. And like I said, please email me if you need additional support. I definitely want to help you find the resources that you're looking for.
Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you.